on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of CryptoZombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an alright start to your week. I know that things have been very crazy in the crypto space. In fact, I didn't even make a video yesterday because realistically we knew that there wasn't much to talk about on Sunday. What we were waiting for was to see this open for the overall markets. Now, we do have the S&P opening quite low today. In fact, we have a gap. You can see that we have a very red candle opening today. We have fallen below the 200 daily moving average, and there is a lot of fear in both Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Now, you can see right here, Bitcoin has obviously fallen and filled this CME futures gap, which is good, right? That means we don't have to worry about that. So we can take that off. And interestingly enough, we also have seen Bitcoin actually have a bit of support off of this legacy spider line right here, where we did have this touchdown right back in January of last year. And you can see that it did arguably provide support. We are in fact sitting exactly at that level today. So in today's video, guys, we need to discuss what is happening because there are in fact a lot of new people in the crypto space. And it can be a little bit upsetting, especially if you have bought in recently. In fact, there's a lot of negative sentiment, and you think you'd get used to it, the 10th, 11th, 12th time, but sometimes it really just beats you down. You go over on Twitter, everybody's blaming everybody, saying, you told me to buy this and I bought Bitcoin here and it's all going to zero and Peter Schiff was right, and just a lot of toxicity in the space. But the thing that is most important to remember is that markets do in fact move in cycles. There are ebbs and there are flows. There is euphoria and then there is despair. The most important thing to remember is that all of this eventually always passes. So if there are people right now that are not interested in this and they can't handle these types of swings, the volatility, then I suppose you could up and leave the space, right? You could just stop watching these videos. You won't be offending me. But at the end of the day, guys, we do know that the most amount of money, the most successful people in any type of market, even if you're talking about guys like Warren Buffett or even down to the average individual Bitcoin investor, we know that these times, these terrible days of multiple red bloodbath candles when everyone says it's going to zero, well, guys, those were the times to accumulate these levels back here when we had the bear crash in December of 2018. All of this opportunity to buy Bitcoin below 6,000. This capitulation that we had, this freak out black swan event, right, that we had back in COVID. And right now, my friends, Bitcoin is currently sitting at a 55% discount. Actually, at the time of making this video, this crash is still not even as bad as the one that we had back here in May of last year. Surprisingly, we're actually still above that, but nevertheless, it can be a little bit scary. So in today's video, I'm going to focus mainly on what we can expect, what's happening with the price. This is clearly bearish price action. There's no way around it at this point. This is definitely bearish for Bitcoin. However, we do know that these things eventually end, and there is one thing specifically that does need to happen for Bitcoin for us to have this reversal. So I will let you know exactly what that is. I'll also show you some potential targets of where I do anticipate Bitcoin could be bottoming out. However, right now, as far as people saying, has Bitcoin bottomed? Well, there are unfortunately a few signs that do suggest that Bitcoin has not quite gotten to the bottom yet. However, not financial advice. For those of you who are wondering, is now a good time to start buying Bitcoin? Well, to answer that question simply, not even based on my particular opinion, but historically speaking, yes, this is actually a great time to potentially start dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. But as usual, most people don't buy when it's down. They beg for these crashes, and then what happens? Well, they don't buy, and then we start rallying back up to 60K and 70 and new all-time highs, and then they FOMO back in again. But those of you that do stick around, and those of you that do have conviction and do believe, I can pretty much guarantee you with certainty that when the markets do reverse, and they will reverse, whether it be in the next few weeks or the next few months, those will be where the winners will be made. So let's dive in and let's have a look super quick. And obviously, if you're not subscribed at this point, well, I don't know how you're feeling. If you're just watching crypto for the first time ever, pretty incredible. Probably a great time if you haven't bought any, if you've bought nothing yet, if you have no exposure, definitely a great time potentially to be buying. However, the problem is right here is that we did fall out of this falling wedge to the downside, and we have attempted on 3 separate days to break above it. Now, the issue that we have currently is there is so much resistance because we've fallen below these levels. It's going to take a lot to get Bitcoin to move out of these levels. And, some people think, oh, we're just going to have this big V-shaped recovery. recovery? Probably not, guys, like we did back here. I mean, we essentially danced around and kept going lower and lower and lower and lower for over 2 months before having that rally. And there were a lot of people that were giving up here, saying it was over, panic selling. And I mean, obviously we know what happened, right? But it's very scary when you're currently sitting in that situation. Obviously, hindsight is easy, right? Oh, look at this. You could have bought here and look what you could have done. Yeah, well, maybe you didn't, or hey, maybe it's different this time, right? Well, to be honest with you guys, I don't really think markets change that much because fear and greed and human emotion, as much as we like to pretend that we can look back at history and try to change the past and figure out where we could be going, it is the same, guys. Go on social media. Look at what people are saying. They're sad. They're depressed. Their portfolios are down. Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. I've heard it time and time again. I have heard this narrative every single time that Bitcoin dumps, and quite frankly, it's exhausting, and it's really hard to even care at this point because you know what? If those people want to get out of the markets, they want to sell, go ahead, do something else, buy some collectibles, I don't know, trade NFTs, whatever it is that you do. But ultimately, what you can see right here is regardless of what is happening, we still haven't even had the official announcement from the Fed yet, which I think is hilarious that this is just markets reacting to an announcement of an announcement. But as you can see right here, the total crypto market cap has not seen an oversold RSI this bad since essentially the COVID crash, which did go slightly lower than this. But the next comparable moment that you might even look at right here was when Bitcoin was sitting right here at around the overall crypto market cap was sitting at around 190 billion right here. You know, considering today we're sitting at 1.5 trillion. Imagine panic selling at that point. It's a lot of people trying to time the bottom, and a lot of them are going to be wrong. Most traders lose money, and trying to trade this right now is pretty crazy in my opinion. If you believe in it long term, then you can definitely start dollar cost averaging. Obviously, I can't tell you to do that, but I've been buying all the way down. People were laughing at me when I was buying at 48 and then it went down to 38 and I bought some more and now it's down at 33. And guess what, guys? If we go lower, I will buy some more. As I said, my biggest fear is running out of my cash position to keep buying these sales. But the one thing that we were looking at was this hash ribbon indicator. Now, we haven't actually had another capitulation event. And just to point it out, the capitulation events don't always have to happen during massive sell-offs, right? That doesn't necessarily have to happen. You know, we had this back here, and this was during a rally, right? Now, every single time we've ever had these hash ribbon buy indicators, Bitcoin has never gone lower than the previous swing low, and only one time in Bitcoin's history ever did we do that, and that was right here during the crash where we had the fear about the pandemic, right? But the thing is what the Fed is doing right now is essentially basically just making an announcement of something that they're going to be doing in the future. They have not actually done it yet, but we know that they're planning on doing something. So this is not a black swan event. This is something that the markets are factoring in. Now, although they are factoring it in with a lot of fear right now, it's not a surprise. It's not a, and honestly, as far as we know, how many times have they gone back on their word anyway? I wouldn't be surprised if come March they say, you know what, we changed our mind. We're actually going to keep things how they are. And then, my goodness, imagine all the people that sold at these levels and imagine the rally that we would get then, right? But moving on essentially to the biggest, and some people are actually joking, saying that, this basically looks like the McDonald's symbol. I don't know if you've seen those memes online. They're putting this over the McDonald's logo. But we have talked about this in the past. And although, yes, some people have called this a double top, some people have referred to these, as head and shoulders. Well, this head and shoulder didn't play out. This head and shoulder right here, you can argue, is playing out a little bit. But ultimately, this was a structure that we had been looking at for months as a possibility. There have been two bear targets that we were looking at. The first one would be sort of that percentage above the previous low, right? Which would put us pretty much right around where we are right now. So we do have to see what happens with this move at the end of the day. Like I said, this S&P is looking absolutely horrible right now, falling off a cliff. It will eventually have a relief rally, but at that point, I would anticipate that a lot of people would be looking to sell on those resistances. So obviously, if you are trading, what you do in a bear trend is you actually trade the resistances. That's how you do it. But for me right now, I'm not looking to trade this. I prefer to trade uptrends, especially if you're using leverage. I don't trade downtrends. They're just too risky. And honestly, I don't really feel comfortable shorting Bitcoin. It's just not something I like doing. But if we do have a look at what Bitcoin has been doing, like I said, the possibility of us coming down and retesting this area right down here around 29,000. In fact, I was actually interviewed yesterday on Big Dog Crypto's channel, and he was asking me about some of my price targets, and I think that this area down here could be possible for that capitulation wick, because the problem is that we haven't actually seen that full-on capitulation just yet, and I will get to that in just a second of what needs to happen in order to see that reversal. So as I pointed out, and I'm not going to keep showing you this chart. We've pulled it up 100 times already, but back here, between March of 1997, all the way until March of 2009, we had the S&P doing the exact same thing that Bitcoin is doing right now, where we had a double top. Everyone was afraid this was the end of the market. We had a sharp correction right here, very similar to what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now. Lots of gains, lots of percentages lost recently. And then what did we do? We had a fake out below the level right here. So the level where they were assuming to have the bounce was around 768. The S&P came down to 667 and then put in its double bottom pattern and continued. Now, I know I've used this example a lot, but we can also look at this in other places as well. Here's a slightly more sloppy example of this double top that happened during the same time for the Dow Jones. And you can see right here, very similar structure. It put in this high right here. It put in a higher high, the same way that Bitcoin put in a higher high, right? We went higher the second time that we did, came down. We had this fake out. We had the capitulation. And then we continued with the double bottom spring to the upside, which is why going back to the Bitcoin chart, I still see this as a massive possibility, right? So this could even put us down to some crazy low levels, just wicking on the daily down to this area, which is why I've actually put some of my buys down here in the $28,000 level area for Bitcoin. I don't anticipate us necessarily staying in those levels, but it is a possibility. I'm still not bearish, right? Short term, of course, this is a bear trend. This thing could drag out for the next 3 months, the same way that we had this drag out for the 2 months here. So, if you want to see what that would look like, you'd have something like this. We came out, right? You have this thing, we spring up, but then we get stomped out at this resistance here. Bitcoin starts to trend downwards, people freak out, and then we reclaim support and continue to the upside. That is most likely what we're going to see happen with Bitcoin. Now, the thing you can look at, if you want to look at the ultimate, just worst case scenario for Bitcoin, there is one level that has historically always supported Bitcoin. And I'm going to show you in a second, because according to this, EMA ribbon, we have fallen into it. Now, falling into this ribbon is not a good thing. It usually does signal that there will be a bit of a prolonged bear trend for Bitcoin, as you have seen in the past. But what I do want to show you is if we do switch this to the weekly, having a look at some of these important levels. Actually, let me just get rid of this EMA right here, because we don't really need to be looking at it right now. Although I don't know, hold on one second, EMA ribbon, get rid of that. We can also get rid of this exponential. So having a look right here, you do notice that we are approaching the 100 moving average on the weekly. Now, this has provided support in the past, but nevertheless, it usually doesn't signal that the bear trend is over. But what has absolutely supported Bitcoin every single time is this 200 weekly moving average, which has always signaled the absolute bottom. This is the pink line right here. And you can see every time Bitcoin crosses below it, that is it. That is the bottom. We never go any lower than that. And the next candle that we get after that on the weekly always closes above it, right? We had this situation back here in January of 2015. We had a similar situation in September later on in that year. The major Bitcoin capitulation bottom of 2018 perfectly bounced and rode on that level. Even during the COVID crash that we had, look at this. We fell below it on this weekly candle of March 9th, and by the next week, we were already above it. So where is that level sitting today? Well, currently at the time of making this video, that level is sitting at $19,000. $19,500. Now you're probably saying to yourself, $19,500, so we have to go down to 20K. No, guys, that's not the case, because as you can see, this moving average does continue to move to the upside, and it will take time. Bitcoin is not going to fall from $33,000 to $20,000 overnight. It's just not going to happen unless there's some catastrophic event. We will see a bounce here. We will most likely see some resistance at this 50-day moving average, which is sitting at around 48,000. And as this continues to curve down, okay, and as this continues to curve up, you can see Bitcoin right here. We probably will come up to this level. And then as this begins to still come up, you know, it's possible for Bitcoin to continue sideways, and then these two can actually meet right here. So yeah, we could come down to the 200 weekly moving average, but I highly doubt we're going to come down to it today. Maybe we meet it somewhere around $33,000 halfway through this year. That is a possibility. Now, what needs to happen? That's the biggest question. Well, what needs to happen? Okay, I get it. Things are looking terrible. I'm losing money. My portfolio is going down. You know, everything is terrible. The sky is falling. Well, what we really need to see is some volume. Like Bitcoin Census pointed out, at every single time on the weekly chart that we had a capitulation event since 2018, it was followed by massive volume. After these events, we did have the full capitulation. We had all the liquidations necessary. The open interest finally came to a decent low, and we could continue moving to the upside. Now, if we actually have a look at that right here, you can see, look at all this volume right here on the capitulation that we had during the COVID crash. Look at all this volume that we had down here. See this big red spike? That was during the capitulation back here in May. And yet currently Bitcoin has just been slowly bleeding. And you can see that we have declining volume, which does say that we're looking for some type of massive volatility, but we have not seen the volume yet. So until we really see that volume come in for Bitcoin, we see the capitulation, we get to the point where everyone and their mother is saying, what a terrible idea had I just made getting into this crypto space. It's a scam. That's usually what you're waiting for. You're waiting for that volume, and we haven't really seen that yet. Now, getting back also to not just these levels, talking about the moving averages, there were two very, very important historical spider line trend lines that we need to pay attention to, and that was this right here. Now, I actually spoke about this event, and a lot of people were telling me that this was not something that you could necessarily, play off of, although I was very bullish, and that was back here when we had this ascending, broadening channel, wedge, whatever you want to call it, right? It was like a megaphone channel, right? So essentially, the price was getting wider and wider. We kept putting in higher lows and higher highs, and this was a very, very, very important area for Bitcoin, a very important accumulation level. And as soon as Bitcoin broke above that $13,000 level, very psychological, because that was where we had those highs in June of 2019, we did see Bitcoin blast to the upside. So if you do take these channels, you realize that the top part of the channel has been lost. So we have had resistance, which was support right here. When we capitulated, we have fallen through that. So the next level that we have is the actual support of the support itself. It's the support of the support. And not only that, but it's also where Bitcoin bottomed out in December of 2019. And this is this green trend right here. So this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. I do believe that what a lot of traders are looking for is for Bitcoin to sort of come back to planet Earth, come out of the stratosphere and reclaim this level. And if you follow this level out right here, you will see that even if Bitcoin was to fall directly down today, that does put us at that $20,000 level, which does coincide perfectly with the weekly moving average. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. More likely, what will happen is a small capitulation break which is what we need. We need to see that volume, and then a little bit of bounce. And then if we do continue sideways, what will eventually happen is we will in fact touch this level. And then at that point, I believe that the structure will made completely the structure will have been made completely solidified. And at that point, anybody that was buying in this area right here, once we do break above it, I believe personally that Bitcoin will most likely never come down to these levels again. And, going back to what we were saying about the Fibonacci levels, that 1.618 level is sitting at around $28,500, which is why personally, I think that even if we wick below 28,000, that will provide the support. And that will be the overall macro bottom on the weekly, give or take, some of these potential wicks that we're going to see. So essentially, if there's anything that you guys can take away from this video, it's that, look, we've been through this before. We've been through these scary times. It may feel very intense if you're experiencing it for the first time. In fact, there's people that have been in crypto for years, and still these types of events are never great to deal with. They're never great to have to live through. But at the end of the day, as you can see over time, markets need time. Because that's how charts are built. You can't just have a candle wick in one day and go back down the next day. That doesn't really provide any data. You need time. Time is the key. Time in the market is better than trying to time the market. So like I said, if this is too much for you and you want to leave and you want to go, then you know where the door is. I won't take any offense if you don't want to watch crypto videos. And if it's too much for you, maybe close the phone and come back in a few months. That's a possibility. But if you do come back in a few months and Bitcoin and crypto are, well on their way to a recovery, and you do end up buying back in higher, then, don't be envious of those people watching. A lot of you watching right now that have been around, thank you so much for the past few years. I've been around for over 5 years in this space. We've seen everything. We saw the entire crash from 20K all the way down to 3K. We went up to 14,000 only to crash all the way back down to $3,000 again. If for anyone that was around during that 2020 crash, do you even understand what this did to the spirits, to the time, spending over 3 years in the market only to end back at the exact same level that we started? Can you imagine what it was like? I know what it was like. I lived through it. It was terrible. It was horrible to see what people were saying and how the markets were reacting, and people that I truly respected just completely stopping making content, selling all of their Bitcoin, saying, well, it was fun while it lasted, guys, but I guess that's about it. That's what we're seeing again right now, guys. Markets move in cycles. Feels really great when it's euphoria. Feels really terrible when it's despair. But at the end of the day, there is always a recovery. And those who stay during these times, these terrible times, those who dollar cost average, and those who have the conviction and the strength to actually persevere through these moments, those are the true victors. And I know some of you out there are in that camp, and I'm rooting for you guys. I'm absolutely rooting for you. Not to mention, guys, that a majority percentage, an ungodly percentage of my, net worth is in crypto. So I put my money where my mouth is. I bought at 48, I bought at 38, and I have buys right now set at that $28,000 level because I want to catch that wick, because I want the discount. I don't freak out when Bitcoin's on a discount. I freak out that I'm going to run out of money and not be able to buy any more Bitcoin, because why would I want to hold the dollar when we know that even if the Fed does raise rates and they do go through with what they're saying, history has shown us that it won't last. Inevitably, they will change their tune and things will just carry on as normal. But on days like today, it's definitely scary and it's hard to get through. So that's why I continue to make these videos, guys, every single day. I want to just put things into perspective for you. You got to have a look at this chart, over time, obviously having a look at it. All of these were very scary times, going from $793 all the way down to $500, or going from, $500 all the way down to $250, or going from $20,000 all the way down to $3,000. I mean, really having a look at what people are freaking out about right now, it's just this right here. This is what everyone's freaking out about. So you got to zoom out. And at the end of the day, guys, it will be fine. I know it can be hard to see that right now, but that's what I want to leave you with today. Not too much fundamentals, not really seeing the point in showing news or videos today. I think we just need to be realistic. We need to understand that these things take time. It's not going to get better necessarily overnight. I do anticipate there to be a relief rally, but ultimately what we are doing right now, in hindsight, fast forward a year, is amazing. It's amazing what is happening right now. We are building such a strong structure for Bitcoin, the same way that we had such a strong amount that was built right here, right? All these people that bought down here, and we saw the long-term charts are showing us that they are the hodlers. They're not selling. People that are selling right now are people that got in recently. It is some of the institutions. It is some of the people that got in just for those quick gains. And ultimately, since I've been in this market, I've never, ever been in a situation where being a long-time Bitcoin hodler has ever come back to haunt me. All it has ever done is provide me opportunities to buy at greater discounts before the inevitable move to the upside. So that is it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Hope you enjoyed today's video. A little bit of a rant today. I didn't really have much planned, not much to say, not much going on. At the end of the day, though, you know where I put my money, and that is in Bitcoin. That is where I put my money. I mean, even profits, like people say, where do you take profits? Well, I take profits in Bitcoin because Bitcoin is really where I want to hold, where I believe the value will be stored. So yeah, that's about it for me today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. I always like to try to end on like a positive note. The positive note is that we've seen this before. It's nothing new. And honestly, the crash that we had last year was worse than what we're having right now. So you really have to put things into perspective. So thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos every single day. Trust me, I'm not out here making these videos for myself. I'm making them for you guys. I love you. You're awesome. Your support has been amazing. Stay crypto, of course. Stay cool. And of course, my friends, peace out.